Joe Biden's campaign is resurrected with a huge night on Super Tuesday. Also, Elizabeth Warren continues to be delusional. Bloomberg has some big news for you. It was a bad night for communism, a bad night for Bloomberg. We got that and more coming up on our Super Tuesday post show right now. Welcome to the Buck Sexton Show, everybody. What a night it was. You know, there's so much to go through here. We'll have some fun with it today because shattered assumptions, the truth of different campaigns finally revealed, and my maxim that nobody can predict the future, nobody really knows, certainly seems to be the case right now. Let's just start with the very straightforward, big top-line news item that Biden's campaign annihilated somehow the competition and we'll get into why. There are reasons why this is. Annihilated the competition in the Super Tuesday states. Alabama, Biden wins, 63% of the vote. Virginia, Biden, 53%. North Carolina, 43%. Tennessee, 41%. Arkansas, 40%. Oklahoma, 38%. Minnesota, 38%. Massachusetts, 33%. Texas, 33%. Bernie Sanders won Vermont, Colorado, Utah, and eked out a victory. Well, it's about 10 percentage points over Biden in California. But look, the Biden campaign has got to be feeling pretty good right now. There's no two ways about it. And there are some other candidates who really need to do some searching, some soul searching, some campaign. We call it a after action report or a hot wash or whatever. It's clear to the Bloomberg camp that this isn't going to work because Bloomberg is out. But I was going to win. I had the little sushi rolls at all the events. And you know the tiny crab cakes with the aioli on top? They're so good. Why won't you vote for me? I had T-shirts, organic cotton T-shirts given out at all my rallies. Why won't you vote for Mini Mike? American Samoa stood on Bloomberg's side of this whole thing. So now we have a situation I think never before seen in American politics. In fact, I'm quite sure of that, where American Samoa was the only electoral victory for a guy who spent $600 million of his own money on a presidential campaign. And of course, Bloomberg is set to make, I think he makes, I don't even know what that, I mean, he will make, he could have continued spending at the rate he was spending. I think someone did an analysis of this that I saw last night. And just based on compound interest, would still have more money next year than he had this year. So it really doesn't matter to him. That's what's so amazing about it. He could have just walked around slapping people across the face with $100 bills and giving them, wads of cash. And it makes no difference. And the guy has accumulated so much wealth. You would think that maybe that would help the Bernie Sanders campaign. But Bernie Sanders had a very disappointing night. We'll get into Elizabeth Warren in just a moment. Elizabeth Warren. I'm starting to think Elizabeth Warren is an establishment figure now and pretending to be a progressive because of what she does to this race. But we will get into those details in just a moment. Look, let's give Joe Biden, and I know some of you are going to say, Buck, you've been saying it's not going to be Biden for months. Guys, I know. Give me a code red. I don't know what to tell you. I can't believe the Democrats are this dumb. Unless there's something terrible that happens to the country between now and Election Day. In a rational world, which we clearly do not live in a rational world, the 2020 election is a replay of 2020, but with an even weaker candidate with less reason to vote for him in Joe Biden than the Democrats had in Hillary Clinton. And the possibility of Bernie Sanders supporters really deciding that they've just had enough and they're going to stay home and they're not going to turn out for Joe Biden. So there's no reasonable, and remember, we're not in a reasonable era anymore. Things are crazy. There's no reasonable expectation that any of us should have that Joe Biden will fare any better against Trump than Hillary Clinton did. But given how crazy, weak, and absurd the Democrat field is, they've decided to go with the most, quote, safe choice possible in 78-year-old ultra politician Biden, who says bizarre things and really does seem like he is on the precipice of senility. And let's be honest, if he's not now, where will he be in 3 or 4 years? That's the safest choice that they had to offer up. So I know it's not over yet, as the Bernie people will tell you, and we'll get it, but it's looking really bad for the Bernie crowd because the states that are left they're Biden country. So unless Bernie somehow is able to convince a lot of people in the South and the industrial Midwest to vote for the socialist over Joe Biden, it doesn't look like it's going to happen. I mean, last night was the worst night for communism since a bunch of Germans were taking sledgehammers to a wall in Berlin. I mean, it was a thumping for communism, Marxism, Bernie Sandersism. Not a strong night at all. I really thought that Joe Biden, there's no way. He's such a clown, and he's not up for this in any regard. But they've decided that he is just the vessel, and that this is the Democrat apparatus is safest using him as the vessel for their power grab against Trump, right? That's what this is really about. He's not going to give inspiring speeches. He doesn't have, he's not going to get anybody fired up. It's just, he's not Trump. He's not Trump, and he's a lifelong Democrat. So that's what they're going to go with here. I can't believe that this is what the Democrats are going to do, but I have to believe it because it looks like now you're at about a 75% likelihood that Joe Biden is going to have a plurality of delegates going into the convention. And does anyone really believe that they're going to have some backroom deal? Because the backroom deal is why Joe's in this position. I have to back up for a second because it sounds like, well, how could everyone have gotten? And look, I didn't see this Biden surge at the last minute. And this is almost like this is like March Madness in politics. This is something of an October surprise. Nobody could have, in March, really seen this coming because the expectation would be that people who have spent all this money and said they wanted to be president wouldn't drop out right before Super Tuesday. They'd want to see how they did. What we didn't, I should say, we could have, but what I didn't account for beforehand, and really very few of my conservative brothers and sisters did, is, by the way, with all the coronavirus stuff out there right now, every time if I touch my nose or my beard or anything, I'm like, oh, shouldn't do that. Shouldn't do that. It's making me really paranoid. But we didn't think that there would be such, and this is what should have been accounted for in this whole assessment process. We didn't think that there would be this Prussian precision where Buttigieg and Warren dropped out. I'm sorry, not Warren. Buttigieg and Klobuchar. Whoops. Oh, don't confuse me with that other lady. Buttigieg and Klobuchar dropped out right before Super Tuesday and through their support to Joe Biden just in time. It's not like they just dropped out. They dropped out. They went all in for Biden when they needed to, when it counted for him. If Bernie Sanders was able to run with the field as it was a week ago, everything that I had been saying would be true, which is that Bernie would have the delegate lead. And now you're talking about things getting really tight going into that Democrat convention in July, which is going to be here before you know it. But because you had the establishment able to get obedience right away from the Buttigieg and Warren campaigns. Buttigieg is going to run again. Buttigieg will be the Democrat candidate at some point in the future, maybe 4, maybe 8 years. They're getting him ready. They're building him for bigger things. Trust me on that one. Klobuchar, I don't know, not so much. Klobuchar is not playing for being the anointed one, as Buttigieg is within the DNC, within the establishment and the apparatus. Klobuchar is playing for what's she going to get in a Biden administration. Secretary of State, perhaps, Secretary of Education. I don't know what she wants. Probably not education, but She might think of herself as a Secretary of State possibility, something like that. Hey, if somebody waved that in front of you and you had about a 1 in 100 shot of becoming president, or a 50-50 shot in your mind of being Secretary of State, I think a lot of people would. Trump saw it. He called it out. He said it's a quid pro quo. We know it was. Hey, quid pro quos are okay. Life runs on quid pro quos. Q, PQ. Everybody knows this. But, of course, in the Ukraine phone call fiasco, we were told, the quid pro quo. So that's how we got to this point where Biden is now the nominee apparent. I mean, he's not definitely the nominee. It could still go to Bernie. Hey, if we've learned anything, it's that nobody can predict the future, which I tell you all the time. And then I like to make predictions anyway because it's fun. But Biden seems like he's on a glide path. And then we'll get into what's the oppo against him. But ultimately, it was a bad night for Marxism. Is that a good thing for the country or not? Given that we could have had a full-scale repudiation of it in a general election. It also would have, if Bernie Sanders had won, it would have tainted the Democratic Party for a long time. Now, I'm speaking about this as if it's done. I know it's not. But these are the dynamics that are at play right now. And now we have to get into what's going to come next. Clearly, the Trump administration's ability to handle this coronavirus pandemic is, I think we probably should just start using that word. I know people don't. It's not a pandemic in America yet, but it's a global pandemic. Clearly, that's going to matter a lot. The economy is going to matter because if the pieces line up in a similar fashion to 2016, you got to figure with a strong economy and a strong record, Trump is looking really good. But Biden's resilience and endurance in the face of his own ineptitude, bizarre comments, and just lack of why. Why should Joe Biden be president? He's not impressive. He's not smart. He doesn't have a good track record. Why should he be president of the United States? Democrats just say he's a Democrat and he's not Trump. And is that going to be enough?
To those who've been knocked down, counted out, left behind, this is your campaign. Just a few days ago, the press and the pundits had declared the campaign dead.
Well, that was because we assumed, many people, myself included, that the race would continue in an organic fashion and there wouldn't be deals brokered behind the scenes, pushed by the DNC, by the donor class, and that is obviously what happened here. There's no other reason why Buttigieg and Klobuchar would drop out at the last minute. So interesting that they think they learned, the Democrats think they learned the lesson of 2016. Oh, well, if only the Republican establishment had been able to clear the field so that Ted Cruz would have been able to beat Donald Trump, then the good thing, Trump not winning, would have happened for the Republicans. They don't seem to understand that, no, actually allowing the process to play out where all the candidates were fighting it out till the end is what allowed us to get Donald Trump, who's a wildly popular among Republicans president, 95% of the party behind him, and has been able to deliver on a lot of major promises to the GOP. So the lesson they take is anything to stop Bernie, when in 2016 it was a good thing that the GOP didn't take anything to stop Trump. The DNC takes a different approach now. They say, okay, we need to make sure that we don't have this outsider candidate who just comes in and steals our cookies, so to speak. So can't let him steal your cookies. Cookies are delicious. I don't know what maybe I'm actually kind of hungry right now. Biden was knocked down because he had a bunch of bad early finishes in this race. He has come back very, very strong. Why is that? We should drill down into the why. And here's what Biden says about his reason for why he should be president of the United States. Producer Mark, clip 3, please.
We want a nominee who will beat Donald Trump, but also keep Nancy Pelosi the Speaker of the House. Win back the United States Senate. If that's what you want, join us. And you want a nominee who's a Democrat, a lifelong Democrat, a proud Democrat, an Obama-Biden Democrat. Join us.
An Obama-Biden Democrat. Isn't it so interesting? This is going to be the narrative. A return to the 8 years of Obamaism. That's what Biden is saying that he will give you. Of course, we recall the Obama years were very good politically for Obama, very bad for the Democratic Party. Tea Party came out, wiped out the Democrat majority in the House. Eventually, Republicans took back the Senate. And even more, if you're looking at the numbers, even more noteworthy, the state houses and governorships that flipped red under Obama's years in office. Obama was a popular president, certainly among Democrats, and still has that perception more broadly. I think independents and moderates, they still generally like Obama personally. But that never translated to wins for the Democratic Party. We'll see if it's different this time around with Biden as the Obama-Biden Democrat, as he says. But you look down the list here, he's saying he's electable. That has been the case from the beginning. It's actually why the polls were always showing nationally that Biden was the leading candidate among this very crowded Democrat field of lunatics and maniacs. Biden was the guy, right? So they think he can win, therefore he should be Donald Trump's opponent, and that's a self-fulfilling prophecy. We'll see if it's true. Down ballot, clearly people had their concerns about that. The down ballot ticket. How it would affect House races, Senate races if you had Sanders, the socialist, atop the ticket. That's an experiment that we've never run before, but the general consensus is that it would be bad for Democrats if, in fact, you had Sanders at the top of that ticket. And a Democrat, not a socialist. It's a good line. It's somewhat remarkable that Bernie Sanders got as far as he did in this process. I will tell you right now, there will be a socialist candidate on the Democrat ticket. The momentum is all in that direction. We are heading in that direction, especially if you have 4 more years of Donald Trump. The left is going to just go into fits of rage and mania, and there'll be such a push from the media, from Hollywood, to have an even further left, younger, more inspirational, an Obama-like figure who pushes the country to socialism. That's what's coming.
It's a good night, and it seems to be getting even better. They don't call Super Tuesday for nothing. By the way, this is my little sister, Valerie, and I'm Jill's husband. Oh, no, Val, you switched on me. This is my wife. This is my sister. They switched on me.
That's a classic Biden moment. We've played more classic Biden moments for you on this show. And the media has been covering for this guy for years and years. Because of his association with Obama, they made, and look, it also is they cover for all Democrats, so I don't want to overstate this either. Any Democrat gets away with more, can say more, can be more of a buffoon without paying a price in the public's eye because of the way the media will always wrap it up and, oh, he's just being Joe. Oh, he's just being a cuddly old geezer. Joe, blue-collar Joe riding the Amtrak, the whole thing. I did appreciate Tucker a few days ago in his monologue on Fox, because I watch Tucker's show when I can, a couple times a week usually, and I saw that he was saying that Joe Biden, for all of his talk about the working man and the working class and the middle class, has been essentially like a water carrier for credit card companies for a long time. Credit card companies have engaged in some really shady and this is I'm not putting on my Bernie Sanders hat here. I'm telling you the truth. Credit card companies have been very effective at getting legislation passed that gets their debt owed to them and the APR, the annual percentage rate, and other things that they can charge. Very favorable for them, very unfavorable for you, the consumer. And the average credit card rate's about 25%, I think, on an annualized basis. That's enormous. And you cannot discharge those debts in bankruptcy, usually. credit card debt's a lot harder now to discharge in bankruptcy court than it used to be. That's just lobbying. That's just people like Joe Biden making sure that if you go through a rough period without a job and a lot of times we always are told, oh, credit card debt, don't buy the jet ski and go on the trip to the south of France and all this stuff. No, usually it's people putting stuff on there that are essentials, but they've run out of they don't have income. They don't have paychecks coming in. But the credit card companies have done stuff that would, in a different context, people would go to prison for. This is true. They've in the past engaged in a practice, and you won't hear about this. And we're all, oh yeah, they're all these all-American companies. They've got great PR. They used to move around due dates intentionally so that people would miss their payment date, and then your introductory APR of like 9%, 9.99999. Your introductory rate would jump up to 30% right away. And all of a sudden now anything that if you did that, if you tried that with the government, if you tried that in your business dealings, I'm going to change something intentionally without giving notice, or I'm going to do it in a way that's intentionally fraudulent so that I can get more money from somebody in a transaction. They would call that fraud. You'd get into a lot of trouble. But credit card companies got away with it. Oh, yeah, no, we just had to adjust because of our systems or blah, blah, blah. Joe Biden, go make sure that we have essentially a can't lose business going on here. You can't do, we're going to get a great APR out of anybody that runs into trouble. And, I always remember this was such crap. The first time I ever checked my credit score, I was in my, I was maybe 24, 25. Then I went out and checked my own credit score. It was abysmal. It was absolutely abysmal. And I thought, I've never missed a intentionally, or somebody always pays my bills on time, always pay my credit card down to zero. Now I'm giving I'm going to give you, what's that guy? Anyway, I'm going to give you financial advice. Pay in cash. Don't use credit cards. That guy.
Do you want me to say his actual
name? No, it's all right. It's all right. But there's some people out there that give you that advice. I can give you that advice too. I have a system. Pay cash. Don't use cards. There you go. So the reality is that I had this terrible credit rating. I mean, I wouldn't have even qualified for a Fannie Mae backed loan. I think. I was in like the high 500s. It was not good. And I was like, how did this happen? And then I looked through my credit score, and there was one revolving charge that had ballooned from $5 to about $300 and hadn't been paid in like 18 months or something like that. And I remember I was like, what the heck is this? A $5, everything else was perfectly fine. And by the way, my credit score since then is magnifico. But, the point is, I looked at this and I said, what is going on here? $5 charge. Capital One, I shut down a card with a $0 balance. And I moved. And Capital One sent to my home after I had moved. This is when I was living in D.C. working the CIA. They sent a $5 maintenance fee charge on a zero balance card that I had closed out. Now they would say, oh, it's, we said somewhere in your 30-page contract about the blah, blah, blah about this, that this is what we can do. I didn't get that $5 maintenance fee. And they jacked up through interest payments on $5 that ended up being like $275 within, 18 months, something like that, with all the penalties and everything else. A collection agency, which is, by the way, why I checked my credit score, a collection agency called me about this. And I'm like, what? And I dug through and I found this whole thing. Because at first I was like, what are you guys even talking? I don't owe any money in any cards. And I remember being on the phone with the credit card company saying, so you guys charged me $5 for nothing, for just because you felt like it. I clearly didn't get it. You have my phone number. You have my email. You no follow-up whatsoever. Only one paper bill sent, and I'm sure maybe they sent a follow-up bill to the wrong address. And you're getting I can't even do the math on that return. You're getting a 50x return on your $5 in 18 months. And I have now, and my credit score, now I'm an untrustworthy borrower because of this. Because of you blanking blanks. And they were kind of like, yeah, that's the system. Oh, wow. Oh, thank you, credit. Anyway, now, I like I said, pay all your credit cards. down to zero if you can. It's, don't ever pay that APR, and you want to be on the right side of that system. And whatever you got to do, just do not run up. I've helped friends get out of credit card debt. Do not run up credit card debt. I mean, do whatever you got to do to not do that. I mean, that is they got to think of that as a last resort. It's a convenience. They're not a lender. They're a convenience for you when you have money in the bank. They are not a lender when you don't have money, unless you have borrow from your Aunt Ethel. Do whatever you got to do. Do not borrow from credit card companies. And Joe Biden, why I got off on this little rant is that Joe Biden is a guy who has always carried a water of the credit card companies. Why? Oh, because they all incorporate in Delaware because of the favorable corporate status that the state of Delaware. This is how Delaware brings in businesses and revenue, right? So that's so Joe Biden's whole, I'm about the working man and everything else. Please. He's also worth tens of millions of dollars. The whole thing is absolutely ridiculous. So that's my little bit of financial wisdom for you today. And as if Joe Biden wasn't a weak enough candidate, and for all the obvious reasons, he says things like this that he will not be challenged on by the mainstream media, because now they're all going to back him. Get ready for that. Anybody who was kind of like dabbling, playing a little footsie with Sanders, tickles. Anybody who was doing that, they're going to switch over to Biden. Play 14, producer Mark.
And I promise you, cures for cancer, Alzheimer's, and diabetes.
I promise you cures for cancer. Really? You can make that promise? Decades and decades, billions and billions of dollars going into this. But Joe Biden's going to come along and cure cancer? This is, if you were coming up with a composite of the ultimate fraudulent politician, I mean, the guy that's just a phony, a fake, says whatever he has to say, big grin, doesn't kiss babies on the head, but kind of sniffs them on the head. I don't know if you've seen that. Does a lot of weird stuff. And Joe Biden, in the Me Too era, by the way, do you think you're going to hear a lot about Joe Biden being a gropey, graspy grabber of behinds? Nope. That's going to just fade. That's not going to be important anymore. You're going to see all of the dishonesty around Hillary. The media that tried to convince you that Hillary Clinton was not actually responsible for violating the Espionage Act over 100 times, which she was. That same media is now going to say that Joe Biden's he's a great man with a great record and brilliant, and he's going to restore our sacred institutions. It's just going to be this avalanche of talking points. No Medicare for all, by the way. No talk about the Green New Deal from him, really. You're not going to hear any of that, trust me. If he does, it's just going to be lip service, then he's going to move on to something else very quickly. He's all the stuff that the Democrats have been pretending they care about, it's going to fade to the side, and Biden just goes, I care about the middle class, helping people get health care, building on the Obama-Biden record. He is Obama term 3. That is the entire pitch, and you're going to see a massive, an unrelenting effort around Biden trying to pull that off for him, pull that together. This is just the apparatus. I mean, the same way that Hillary, and I keep saying that, I like the word apparatus because it's useful. People would say the establishment, same thing really, although apparatus lends itself to apparatchik, like in the Soviet Union. Hillary was the apparatchik candidate, as is Biden. The choice of the people that make the decisions, and as we know, the decision makers in the DNC still matter. That's why Klobuchar and Buttigieg got out. So now we're going to see if they have the muscle, if they have the ability to just foist a deeply unimpressive candidate on us. Can they pull this off? Will they be able to make this happen? I hope the answer is no. I think the answer is no. But my friends, what if we all learned? We fall down so we can learn to get back up. No, that's from the butler from Batman. Bruce, why do we fall down? So we can learn to pick ourselves back up. That's not what I was going to say. We've learned that nobody can really predict the future. Nobody really knows what's going to happen here with Biden. It's kind of a wild situation that here we are right after Super Tuesday, and everyone's got to just rub their eyes a bit and say, whoa, okay. I guess the polls from 6 months ago were all we really had to see, which had Biden winning this thing.
Who would I like to win? Anybody. I'll take anybody I have to. That's the way it's going to work. Doesn't matter. No, I really just, we've done a great job. We have the strongest economy on earth. We've gone up, and, as you know, China's economy has been hurt very badly long before this. We've done a really good job, and I think people understand that, and I'm looking at polls that are very good. But, whoever it is, we'll take them on.
Trump's got the right attitude about it. And I am looking forward to the Donald in his element, which is in the fight against whomever the candidate may be against him. And in the fight against the media. This clip, by the way, has been surfacing the last 24 hours. This is Katie Tur, who is one of those reporters that MSNBC's decided to make a young star, and anybody observing it would say, why exactly? Why is this happening? Here she is, or rather, here is Donald Trump. This is during the 2016 campaign, to be clear. But here's Donald Trump speaking to Katie Tur, an NBC reporter. Play 17.
The Pew Research, which is independent, says...
Don't be naive. You're a very naive person.
The Pew Research says that there are, for immigrants on the whole,
Come on, try getting it out. Try getting it out.
I'll get it out.
I mean, I don't know if you're going to put this on television, but you don't even know what you're talking about. Try getting it out. Go ahead.
I mean, look, usually I'd say, I don't like rudeness, but we all know that he understands what he's up against. These people, they're being rude because they're always coming at him pretending to be something they're not. They come at him as phonies, as fake news. They're pushing an agenda, and they present themselves as, no, we're just here to let the American people make their own decisions. Like we're all a bunch of idiots. We know that's not what's going on. We know what the agenda of all these different journalists is, and I am looking forward to the president being able to do what he did before, which is run, sure, on his record and on the idiocy and the ineptitude of, well, I was going to say of the Democrats running against him. Now it's going to be one Democrat technically it won't be one Democrat until July, but I think we're all going to know here that it's either Bernie or Biden, unless something really crazy happens. But this is going to show us that there's no honesty whatsoever in the media. There's no introspection. There's no learning mechanism from 2016 for them. They will view this upcoming election. This is NBC, CBS, New York Times, Washington Post, and then all the rest. I mean, those are the flagship liberal media institutions. ABC. They'll view 2020 entirely as an opportunity not to do better and not to make right what they, all the trust they lost from Americans who were fair-minded and observing the way that they presented themselves in 2016, observing the bias and the activism under the guise of journalism. They're not going to say we're different now, we're going to do something else, we're going to try to cover this fairly. Their opportunity, the mainstream media's opportunity in their eyes going to this election is going to be, how do we get it right this time by making Trump lose? What else do we have to do? Remember the Billy Bush tape and, Access Hollywood and all this stuff? I mean, we know that they are all in the tank against Trump, no matter who the Democrat candidate is. I mean, you could resurrect Stalin from the grave and, put a suit on him and say, hey, here's the new Democrat candidate. And they'd say, yeah, better than Trump. Doesn't matter. Could be anybody. So this is going to be a test of their power in their minds, and they want to reestablish themselves. The mainstream media, the 90% of journalists that present information to the public, especially about anything politically related, anything that's in the news cycle that's not, the finance journalism, they want to reestablish the power that they think that they have honestly had for many, many decades up till now. And Trump is going to have to just roll up the sleeves and give it to them with more gusto than he ever has before. It will be very entertaining. I just hope that he is successful in this process, because I don't really want to be dealing with a country where we have another Democrat in office that the media, everyone knows is kind of a clown, and yet they're all just going to prop him up. They're going to prop him up the same way they propped up Obama, the same way they propped up Bill Clinton. It's going to be the same thing all over again. and think they're speaking truth to power, too. That's what's going to be so amazing.